Good afternoon and welcome to Coal City Connect. We are out here in the old park parts of Obeteme Market, Enugu. This is the market trends, and we're going to be going into the market. We're going to find out the prices of food stuff, how it has gone down, gone up, or whatever way that it has gone, and how it's affecting the economy generally. That is what we're going to be doing today. And of course, we're also going to be talking to transporters. The recent hike in fuel price, we're still going to be talking about that as well. So follow me as we go into the market. So we are in the middle of Obeteme Market. We're going to be asking questions as it concerns food stuff and, you know, everything that has to do with food. If you look around you, you would see that this is like the hub of food market here in the Coal City. And I have with me this beautiful mommy, Mrs. Fina Ene, right? All right, so mommy Nele, okporoko ma isi ya ma anu ya na ndị hancha niile keka afia okporoko dị kịta.
Ahịa okporoko galala ọnụ kịta
N'akpa ego
na
okporoko na-apụta.
o dipendi dịka nke a kịta ihe a na-egote kịta 95,000
ofu akpa. 95,000 ahụ bụ ọdị n'ogologo ka igozi anyị bịa bewe
mba otu ọ dịcha n'isi otu a otu ọ dị ma ndị obere a ma ndị nnukwu na-adịcha n'ime akpa.
Okay. But ndị a na-adịkwa n'ogologo a na-abịazi akwọ
ya akwọ.
Ndị ahụ eme ego
nke ahụ garakwala ọnụ.
Nke ahụ bụ onye?
Nke ahụ ewu ha agwa m idea na a na-ele na mana nke ahụ ga-achụwakwa ebe 700,000. Yes.
Wow. Okay, onye chekwa anyị bịa afịa gị kịta ọ chọrọ igo ofu ndị arụ otu a bụ onye?
Dịka nke a kịta nke anyị na-ele kịta bụ 2,000 naira.
Ezigbo ọnụ ya?
Ezigbo ọnụ 2,000 naira.
Ndị obele akwanụ?
Dịka nke a kịta 500 naira.
Then ndị akwanụ?
Ndị a 200 like this one. 200. Yeah.
Nke a ọ the same price?
The same price.
Onwe ndị na-adị ka select na-adị n'akpa wetu nsi asịlị ya ụdị ndị a.
Okay, wetegodiri m azụ a wete m 2 or 3. Dịka ndị a kịta 2,000. Ahịa anyị na-akpọ flesh.
Also flesh. Nya nke
anụ azụ. Then nke a wụ ntị azụ 2,000
each.
Fish.
Daalụ. Afia crayfish kwanụ?
Afia crayfish kịta dị a ga-asị kene na ọ dịtụ mfe more than otu ọ dị before last month.
Okay, akpa crayfish kịta na-ada one?
O nwere ndị 70, nwee ndị 68. O depend.
Penta kwanụ?
Penta nọ na 2,400. Yes, a na-ele 2,500 for my now.
Ebe edewele ọnụ ya ka ọ bịazie ekwewe ọnụ ka ezigbo ọnụ ya bụ
ezigbo ọnụ ya ka m na-agwa gị.
Ezigbo ọnụ ya bụ 2,000. Daalụ ndị
2,400 penta. Penta crayfish.
Na ndị na-ekezi eke achọzi aka elewa.
Ndị na-ekere iwe ụfọdụ ndị na-eke eke na-abịakwa ebulu n'akpa.
Abulu n'akpa
ekelewa. This time some ndị workers na-abatakwa buru ke.
Daalụ nwanyị ọma. Ọ gị dewe egusi na ọgbọnọ?
Yes, so I want.
Okay, on the neighbor gị?
My husband, not my neighbor.
Oh, ngwa ị ga-agwa nwunye anyị. Ka anyị ga.
Onye nwa ga-egusi maka nke ahụ.
Chisom, let's go and meet him for the nne anya na ụlọ afịa gị na-afụ ma akpụlụ agbọnọ ma egusi na crayfish na ihe ndị a niile magari bụkwa nke gị. Anyị jụbụ ma ome mana asị ka anyị jụkwa gị ọfụma na oge ma anyị ya afịa crayfish ka ife ọ na-ada n'afịa kịta akpa crayfish ọnụ ego onye
Mackerel fish. On our kita 70,000 and 65,000 according to the bag.
Okay, the bag one or different sizes.
Yes.
You can look 70,000. Yeah, one can now paint kita.
Paint 25, 2005, 500.
On your way is 1 year or
2004 and 2005.
In between that. Obono fan kita.
Obono 7,000, 8,000. Open 10,000. I don't know 12,000. After December. You will tell the scars, but man who do you have Paketa? You do know 7,000, 8,000.
When you're chopping one cup,
one cup, 700. 700.
I will see on your going.
Egusi galalon now. Too much. Egusi draw. I suppose that man said that Eba she go to all the scars, all color, too much. The bag no nka not 115,000, 120,000. As of now, for my level 70, man already too much.
In an anya no ga gbadata before December name.
This time akwi watayenku kita with the time all suppose do nana. Man I wonder how ga win 3 months time or 4 months time. That is oga too much. Oga too much. A cup of it kita no nka no 200. Nke no 170. 170. A cup 20 25 nke aka 3,005.
Onye chọ ibu akpa gari kita ego ne ka o edowe na akpa.
Gari dị all the different size. Owo nke ga-eweta ebe gari dị kana na than any other thing. Owo nke ga-eweta around 17,000. Owo nke ga-eweta 15. Owo nke ga-eweta 40 on the size of bag and the quality of the gari.
Oh, quality dị n'iche n'iche. Onwe nke a na-akpọ gari Abakaliki. Ọ dị n'ime nke ị na-ekwu kita.
Yes, and gari ọkwọ. All the difference. Owo nke ga-anọ bụrụ ezigbo gari. Owo nke ga-ama ọ bụrụ mmiri nkịtị. Ka bụ ezigbo gari ihe na the costly. 17,000, 20,000. According to Ete failure. Penta gari. Owo nke 900. Owo nke 8. Owo nke 1,000. Nke yellow 1,000. Okay, white. Cup here 70 naira.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes. Mo na no eba. Mo wa Mr. IGN Ochozo one of foodie. Yes. Yes. Ochozo one of foodie. So how to go na afia. Na ayokwa Chineke ka ọ na-emekwe ka afia m na-agakwa n'ihu. Ewere azụ ụmụaka. Yeyere ndị mmadụ aka. That's it. I am. Thank you.
Mommy Dalu.
Ụkwa ka nne. Ụkwa 170. Pente 1,000 4,000. Ada eme na akpa. Ama ana na penta. It's another 2,500. Penta. Akponda 200. Mgbe ọkwa biznes ka m ji eme adị m eshikwa. M na-egote. Na-aga na-asụ ka mma penta 2002. Mgbe nọtazi na-ere 25. Iwu 200 per 100 naira. Mr. Victoria nwe obodo.
Alụrụ nne onye nna anyị kwuru na-ele ihe nni rice anwe nke a na-akpọ the stone gọkwa ya then nwe nke a na-afụcha nke aja dị then nke foreign achọ ka ibidogodi n'isi nke dị stone da onye ka ọ nọ n'akpa gị
ihe a na-ele kịta 20,000 naira anya bụ 2 bisel ka a na-akpọ ka penti ihe a na-ele bụ 19 yes cup na penta bụ 19 cup ya bụ 110 naira nke a mụ adịghị ka aja dị na 30,000 naira maka big bag onye 50 kg 25 kg bụ 15,000 naira so ihe a na-ele 25,000 mbụ 2,500 naira cup ya 150 or 160 akpa beans o betụrụ obere ego kịta ihe a na-elezi 68,000 naira mana oge izu elebere 70 less than 5 mana brand ihe na-adọrọ brand 18,000 yes Patasco ihe a na-ele kịta 67 or 68 penti 2,300 naira na cup ha na-ele bụ 130 140 cup na ihe guzo bụ afọ ya ha na-ele ka bụ 66,000 penti ya bụ cheapest beans ị ga-ebeta kịta amalụma bụ 2,300 naira mana ndị iron ndị gbara okpotokpo bụ 240 abụbọ dị ya akwa ihe a na-ele bụ 67,000 naira penti ha na-ele bụ 2,400 naira
daalụ renne daalụ ka isi wee nye anyị oge gị
afọ m ihe na-akpọ Geode shop na O11 na B11 Ogbaete main market
ịnụ gị ya ọ bụrụ na ị chọọ ịma ife nri ma ọ rice ma ọ beans ma ọ fịọ ma nke ọbụla ị chọọ ị bịaluo ebe a ị jụọ ase dị anya agwụnye gị ife ọbụla ị chọọ a na-akpọ ife nri. Thank you so much. Thank you. Daalụ mommy. Good afternoon. Biko achị ịma ife mmanụ na-aga n'afịa kịta mmanụ red oil ọ na ole one kịta
ọ na galọn ka ọ nọ na 22,000
then nke a na-esi galọn nke a na-esi
nke nnukwu nke a 27,000 nke a 15 nke a 750 1 liter and oduro 2 liters bụ half nke a
vegetable oil
ọ galọn ya nọ 16,000 ofi ya maka na ọ bụrụ onye nke a na-agbata ka nke a na-agbata iche ekukwe ya ọ bụrụ the same price.
tomato ji na ndị nnukwu a size nke nnukwu a
ndị nnukwu a 25 ofu tin bụ oke katọn ya ọ nwa nwaanyị butere ya ama m ego na o buru katọn ya ofu bụ 25
this groundnut oil ndị nke a na-asị the same price with ndị nke a na-agba
mbakwa.
Okay, so nke nnukwu a nne n'anya kịta bụ
nke a bụ 5,300
ọ ma nke na-esowe nke ahụ size nke ahụ
3,300
Semovita na ndị bịa makwa na ego
Semovita nọ na 5,000
ya nke nnukwu a
10 kg
ọ ma nke na-esowe nke ahụ
2,800
ndị obere ahụ kwara
nda 700
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are in this shop. They deal on fabrics, different styles, designs. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon.
Please tell us your name.
Okay, my name is Jerry Tess.
Jerry Tex.
Yeah.
You deal on fabrics.
Exactly.
So, different fabrics. I can see a lot of Ankara here. Ankara, how much does it cost right now?
Before we used to sell 1415, but now 15, 16, 17, 18, and it's still going on.
I understand that there are different levels to Ankara.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, we have the one of this, we call it high target.
Okay.
That is Abada. And those ones are 5,000 naira.
Okay.
Then the small ones like this ones, 15, 16, 17 pence design.
Okay. So growing up, we used to hear our mother say they want to buy Hollandis. Which one is Hollandis?
Hollandis just Hollandis the senior one, high targets.
Okay. And that one is how much?
Hollandis now, honestly, is out of hand though. They are selling 40,000, 38,000, 35,000. It depends.
So Sankara.
You don't have Hollandis. You say Hollandis.
Hey! Alright. So how about lace fabrics?
Lace, you get the one of 2,000, 15, 25.
And okay, on the banner level, Ankara is more Hollandis, more high target.
No.
Okay.
All my levels, like price, the price is not the same thing.
Okay. Let's talk about George. How Indiana package? When Indiana what's the difference?
The difference is bigger ones and the small ones. Like something like these ones. This type, 10,000 naira, 8,000 naira, then 5,000 naira. It depends. And there are other ones like 50, 60, 30, 40. It depends.
But now your shop number and your name again, so that we know that people out there that would want to patronize your business.
Thank you very much. My name is Jesse Chinagom. Jerites, that is my business name. Yes. Then this place is still involved. This trouser materials. We have trouser materials. This is senator materials. And we're senator 15 trouser. That is 4,500 naira for up and down. And the one of 6,000 naira, 7,000 the trouser. Then if you calculate 6,000 naira, that is 18,000 for three trouser lengths. Just like that. And the shares materials 15. M2 number 9 is Senator side. Then this Akara side, MO1 number 10 and 11. The Akara side, yes.
Thank you so much. Otis nabata anyị dị anyị mma. Daalụ renne. Afioma o, ị ga-azụ ọfụma. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you.
Biko enwe ike ịgwa anyị afa gị?
Afa m bụ Maazị Ekwe.
Maazị Ekwe, ị na-anya line camp Agbani Road.
Yes.
Biko gwagodi anyị ka transport business a dị for a while now. Ka ekwu si anya.
Ọ zikwa sọ ndị na-elefu ka anyị na-agbara mbọ ịgwawa eziokwu. Ọ na-enwe m up to 3 hours ebe a kịta ebe m na-achọ ka m loaduo ofu trip. Fuel bụzi nga chọta. A na-amatazi fuel ga na-amata garị. Ịgbara lita na abụọ ma ọ chọọ itinye na moto. Ole nwere ike ịkwụ ụzọ ụgwọ ya. Ọ bụghị ha gwara anyị na a na-ere fuel ka ndị na-ere fuel na-eri ya.
Onye ka gwara unu na a na-ere, ole ka ndị na-ele na-ele?
Anyị na-agbapụ fuel 162 naira. Mana ugbu ma 250 ma 200 naira onye ha na-elezi. Ọ bụkwa sọ na ha na-ele onye ahụ amakwa onye nke mita dị mma na onye nke mita adịrọ mma. Ha na-akpa mita aka, gọọmenti adịghị cheki n'ihe ha. Anyị nwa na-eji galọnụ agbata mana a na-akpa mita aka. Ọ bụrụ na ị na-enye gariki, anyị na-agbabu 150 gariki, agbakwa 100, mana onye ahụ dị kịta anyị na-agba 150 agba 200 naira gariki. Yes. Mgbe emere 50 ma 100 naira. 100 naira. Thank you, my sister.
Ihe anyị na-ajụ maka ya bụ otu a unu si agba nke a line ndị Agbani Road camp ọkwa ya ka unu si agba.
No, it's about money and another reason because of fuel scarcity. So I know we are trying because the prices is no longer the same thing. So we want passing like a ego, I'm a equity ego. I know babu 15 naira to come. But now it's 100 naira. But how they were at top, so it's an problem. No, the scarcity of the fuel. fuel was 160, 162. But now it's 200. Some free station are 180, not some. The one free station may pay full. That's the reason we 180 to get customers. No brother on 180 na even 200. Well, has now the problem when our state government with fuel stations. So we fuel station now on the road, a block road. So they are cooling the thing that none not choose. So yeah, what they have a problem. So the man sued the state government to court. So they charge the state government for them to pay for the damages. I refuse to pay. So I have the problem. Fuel union this thing. So I said that now no more supplying of fuel in the Eastern Zone until federal government almost see all this stuff.
Dalurene. Good afternoon, sir. I'm in our 9 mile.
Yeah.
Okay.
9 mile.
Dalu.
And we thank God things are moving, but not the way it should be. But we thank God anyhow.
What's the difference now?
Actually, you are asking me the difference. You are in the country. We are in the same country. We know that things are not the way it should be in the country. So this our business. Or before. In fact, things has gone wrong. A lot of things has gone wrong. I will lots of challenges. We can't mention only one. But the major challenge I face now on the petrol. If you look around, you see that many filling stations are not selling. Even those ones selling, and at a very high price. So
price difference now. And how much were you buying before and how much are you buying now?
Formerly we were buying 165 naira. We believe now about the official pump price then. I don't kind of go. But Keta, some filling stations are selling 200, some 250. Like in those ones selling and go, nearly 250. So for the channel no go one nearly 200. Cheapest one for 190 or 185.
So maybe has to affect business.
Actually, when things go high like this, it make it affect our customers because Hana Gana for no transporters and increase. Ego just knock it high the price of their fare, which is not true. Formerly, places eligible 100 naira if you not got times 2 because the price of the fuel, a liter of fuel now is times 2, double. So we have to double our price to gain it back. So now, it will affect different ways because I reduce number of passengers and apota they reduced. We check ego when I yard. You check ego ni geji moto biago ti ego. If you not got money each on ebo gozo. Na agafia una atụkọta ego inye ofu onye agaba so reduce our customers those ones nke pụtara apụta ọ na-afịa ha arụ ịkwụ ụgwọ so mee anyị na ha na-enwe exchange of words onye anwa na-akparị gị akpọ gị na ị na too much charge. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you are into the transport business. What line do you?
Okay,
INT.
Yeah.
So, what has business been like for you?
Sorry?
What has business been like for you?
Okay, how the business has.
Yes.
Okay, it has. Let me say since 2 years now. It has helped me a lot because with the help of this, I've entered school. So now I'm still undergraduate at School of Dental Technology.
You're welcome. So what are the challenges that you faced so far during this business?
Oh, there are challenges, there are a lot. Because now, especially now that there's increase in the fuel. So if you charge passenger, let me say a place that ought to give you 500 naira, they'll be pricing you 300 naira. So, and secondly, all this VIO or road safeties, MOT, they are disturbing us a lot. Like one day, they stopped me. They asked for my driving license. I showed them. They asked for my spare tire. I showed them. Could you imagine? They asked me that why is it my spare tire is washed, that it's not new, that I ought to buy a spare tire, the new one. I told them I'm a student. He said, if I'm a student, why should I be applying road? So could you imagine that kind of a thing? So I don't know whether they are encouraging us, the youth, to be going to school, or they are encouraging us to be armed robbers. Okay, could you imagine? Last week, that was on Tuesday, I picked a passenger from Transikolo that is going to Gariki. Reaching to Gariki, he came down. He said that he wants to, that we even bargained that to and fro. He said, will pay me 2,000. I said, no problem. Immediately he alerted from the keke. He said, I should give him my phone so that he will call the driver. I don't know what he used. Immediately I gave him the phone. I could not see the man again. He went with my phone. Those are the challenges we are facing. So robberies everywhere, disturbance, road safety, VIO, they don't want to use ice and see keke drivers.
All right, let's talk about the increase in fuel price. At what rate were you buying before, and what rate are you buying now?
Okay, before we were buying 165, and that 165 it was a bit okay, and now they have increased it to 200. Yesterday I bought 200, today I bought it 230. Could you imagine that kind of a thing? Now if I put 1,000 naira for it, before if I put 1,000 naira for it, I will make like 6,000 or 5,000, but now I put 1,000 naira for it, I've not even gotten up to 3,000 naira. So it's affecting us.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for giving us your attention. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that documentary on the trends of foodstuff here in Enugu. For more videos and interesting content, follow us on all our social media platforms, on Twitter and Instagram at Cole_City. On Facebook, we are at Cole City Connect. You can also visit our website at colecity.ng. Thank you very much. My name is Uche Zoe. Keep your ears locked here on Cole City Connect.
People think that African art is sculpture only. But if you look at the Nigerian heritage, for instance, at one pole is the naturalism of the Ife bronzes and terracottas. The heads are very realistic. And then at the other extreme is Uli painting, which is essentially abstract. And in between, you have a whole range of styles. So the heritage in Nigeria already has the full gamut of styles. For the contemporary African artists, it was essential to go back to his tradition, borrow from it, but at the same time, to be aware of other traditions of the world and weld them together. The artists have derived inspiration from uli, wall painting and body decoration of the Igbo people. The qualities of simplicity, of linearity, as well as spontaneity and directness. These were the things that attracted these artists to uli. And this has been reflected in their works. I think it's important to make the linkage between the art of the past and that of the present, which is what the artists of Nsukka have done in going back to uli as a point of departure.
Well, the uli tradition is essentially a female tradition. It's the females in Igbo society who were the people who developed this, because they used the uli forms to decorate themselves, decorate the walls of homes. During festival time, they were asked to help with decorating public shrines and so on.
Nature is the source for the artist. The organization of nature, the structuring of cells, the structuring of plants, trees, the relationship between the earth, bodies of water, the sky, and so on. It's also the painting done by women on the walls, mud walls of shrines or private houses. The forms remain basically abstract. They are more or less like signs or summaries of the original models. So that basically is uli. The line is very central to it, clean, lyrical line. Large open spaces are also part of this tradition as a counterpoint to areas of detailing and texture. The Poetics of Line, 7 artists of the Nsukka group, features the works of a selection of artists from Nsukka. They have either trained or taught at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Nsukka is in southeastern Nigeria, and the university was the first indigenous university in Nigeria because it was the first to award its own degree. What this exhibition has done, particularly for the American public, is to show that African art did not end or die with the classical or traditional masterpieces. If anything, there is very vigorous work going on in Africa today. Uche Okeke's work, I believe, is the one closest to classical uli, and it is reflected in his style and the themes of his work.
Makedo Afanka.
Nke wifa ọkpọ ọkụkọ eji were emeju nke ete.
Uche Okeke is the chief exponent of uli in modern Nigerian art. He was the first to begin to experiment seriously with the forms of wool way back in the early 60s.
Well, I think the first thing is should I say, the design aspect. The design aspect is the innovation that I brought when I got to the university, and that was the introduction of uli as a way of expression. That is, the traditional uli was transformed and used to teach. And we had to experiment using the different motifs and symbols of the traditional uli artists. First, we looked at the general theory, the basics. That is, the problem of drawing as expressed in the West. Yes. That's using geometric forms. And of course, the organic system used in the traditional, which is of course uli. So we had to, get these different motifs, analyzed them, and we tried to use them to express ourselves in the modern idiom. The motifs were, of course, based on materials, objects, useful objects, man-made, pots, metal design, that is iron, mongery, and all kinds of motifs on murals, walls. And we wanted to relate to our environment, relate our art, artistic expressions to our environment. That was very important for us, to create our own new art culture. It meant doing some figurative work, making drawings based on the spirit world, learned from our folklore. And of course, trying to reflect the natural world as would be done by our ancestors. I mean, these are some of the things I wanted to do in my own way. So it's my own expression. I see my work as my own contribution to contemporary art. Because revival, I don't like even the word revival. You don't wake up a dead person and ask him to live. What one will see is this organic kind of transformation, change, rather than trying to beat a dead horse, make it live. Because that's dangerous for any culture or any civilization. I think things should grow one into the other, and there should be change. That's an aspect of life.
Chika Anyako makes very bold shapes, which are almost monumental. And within this basic statement, he adds intricate linear statements.
My work is rooted very much in the idiom of expression. I try to carry a few things like watercolor, pen and ink, and because I can move them around, it enables me to work, as it were, on the spot and take seize on opportunities. I work from sketches mostly, but I also don't allow sketches to dominate my own thinking and creative vision. So what I try to do is, when I prepare sketches, I only allow them to become merely inspirational, in the sense that I carry them in my mind as visual epithets and stock phrases from which I can draw on when I begin to formulate my ideas. I'm now able to provide broad zones, which will serve as visual containers for various images. Then even then, I also allow the surrounding space So the contrast between the surrounding space will provide visual tension, so that even what is here, the negative space here, is also placed in tension in relation with a strong boundary, which in turn re-echoes the surrounding space. So what I now do is I'm now balancing out, getting some details, allowing and seeing how details can help me, as it were, temper the white areas without necessarily, so that I can still retain some levels of visual tension between the dark and the light areas.
Do you use specific uli designs or just
Yes,
the general
because
quality of them?
Yes, quality, because once you get used to the gestures, then you begin to invent the gestures. The idea is no longer a conscious use of elements. So literally you now begin to have zones, almost like in wall painting, you begin to have zones. They become visual containers. Within that you can reach certain levels of experience, but then they interrelate. So that these ones seem to become the broad parent-shaped binders in the visual composition. Yeah. Having gotten the composition out, I'm now looking at the general distribution of pictorial elements and see which area weighs more than the other. So having worked more spontaneously, gradually now you become a little more methodical, where you now begin to distribute elements and more critically now assess things, because as it were, freedom of creativity has been well established.
What I can say about Obiora Udechukwu is that he has used uli as a tool for responding to the social and political conditions in Nigeria. Everyone has an identity. Everyone has a background, a heritage. And for me, uli is my heritage. So when I became conscious of returning to my roots, uli became the thing that was immediately available. So for me, it's a means of understanding myself, understanding my tradition, and using that as a basis for encountering other traditions. There seem to be three broad periods in my work. The first period is a period where I was still working within the conventional idiom on which I was brought up from primary school, secondary school. The second part would then be the period where I used uli very seriously and spent all my time developing it. And the third period is the more recent period when I'm beginning to break away from black and white and moving back to painting and exploring other things, especially color, as color, almost as an end in itself. But I think the main thing which interests me in this experiment now is the texture which one sees in uli wall painting, the background texture, which is like a geometrical monochromatic pattern which provides the background on which the painting or the motifs are situated. It is on this ground that the uli patterns or drawings are placed. Let's say that each artist responds to situations according to his personality and background. Having said that, I think one would recognize that the intensity of experience that one went through during the Nigerian Civil War is largely responsible for this social concern in my work. my work and the works of a few other younger artists tend to address the disillusionment with the country and Africa in general, the failure of leadership, what somebody has termed reckless politics. You find that occasionally people don't want to be reminded of this so-called tragic side of our life. You know, people want to forget that there are human beings who are suffering, that they are refugees. But I've been a refugee, I know what it means. You know, so when I read about Somalia, about Bosnia, and all kinds of things happening now, it makes sense to me, you know. So that my work is not just talking about Biafra, but talking about humanity, about the history of man on this planet, and the enigma that man is. Ella naturally is a magician with wood. You get the impression that you're looking at sculpture and looking at painting, looking at drawing, and looking at textiles all at the same time.
The way the chainsaw cut into the wood, you know, reminded me of, or took my mind back to the experience of the continent of Africa long ago when the colonialists arrived and started cutting almost everything. Something like cutting our culture into bits, slashing it into bits, you know. And you'll find that most of my teams these days are concerned with the history of Africa. Yeah, with the incidence of colonialism very paramount in it. Well, the chainsaw is a very rough and raw material, you know, and very limited in scope. You know, when it cuts, there are a lot of woolly ends that it leaves, and you have to have a way of removing them. There's no other way except fire. And I find out that the fire gives the cuts a certain amount of unity because it gives them the black configuration, you know, which lends unity. Now, this came in sort of unconsciously, but on conscious reflection now, I can relate it to so many other art forms which are in my culture. This idea of the strip woven cloth, where you don't have a cloth woven full width, but you have it done in strips which are brought together. So in a way, one can unconsciously relate this idea of using strips of wood to that tradition. Certainly, I used uli. Most of the times, Western scholars might say, oh, Africans cannot abstract because abstraction is something that the intellect has to, you know, come in a lot, and these people don't have intellect. Therefore, when I came into Nigeria and met Uche and his uli movement and efforts, you know, I was naturally drawn to it. So that I was using both uli and Adinkra symbols. I look at the textures of my work process, and I think about the texture and grain of Africa's history. I look at the authentic colors of the different types of wood, and they remind me of the real colors of Africa's history. I contemplate the directions of the large populations of mobile figures, and they replicate the migrations in Africa's history. I look at the variegated circumstances on the face of a large figure just created, and the feeling takes me across the face of Africa's history.
Taya Danaike is a master watercolor painter, and he uses the human face as a potent instrument for making his statements.
Those faces that you see come out from my mind. And there's the need to say this. If I look at you, the only way I can read your emotion is by looking at your face. If my face is taken away from my body, and if it was still possible that I'd be alive, without moving, if I'm still seated the way I am now, you can tell how I feel. If I focus on a face, or a face appears in my work, then you can tell whether this is a happy face or a sad face. And from there you can begin to read meaning into my work. But I want people to be able to relate to whatever I do. And of course, I've always believed that essentially my art is human. How do you show that humanity if not the use of face? I think I've moved slightly off faces. I think I've moved slightly off faces. Watercolor as a medium is rather subtle. You know, when you think of the level of transparencies that one can achieve with watercolor, you know that it's rather very, very subtle. One would expect that perhaps with watercolor, the best that one can get is landscape paintings, market scenes where you just put little dabs here and there, and then the entire picture is made. But I'm different. I don't do landscapes, for example. I don't paint market scenes, what I call genre. I do things that are more intuitive.
Ada Udechukwu's works are like analogs of poetry. Very epigrammatic, concise, and very elegant.
Even though I studied English or literature, I've always been interested in art, and my mother is an artist. And so as I grew up, I was always exposed to art, and I always drew and painted at some level. When I started the fabrics, which is really the first thing I seriously started doing, I was very much influenced by the woolly motifs. And at that time, I used to make use of them. But as the years have gone by and I've gained more facility with my material and more experience, I would say that I work in a linear style, because very often I create my own motifs or I adapt. And I've always had a tendency, let's say, towards clean lines and simplicity. Silence has always meant a lot to me, and I think I say a lot by my silences in my work and as a person, the way I operate. At the time I was in the United States for a length of time, I was very young, and in the formative stages of my life, really. But what that time probably did for me was to give me another culture. It's true that I come from a mixed marriage, and of course there are two cultures at work. And in fact, I think it's slightly a bit of a handicap for me in a way, though I've always tried to handle it positively. This aspect of belonging to two cultures and perhaps not being fully in either one. The poetry served its own purpose at a particular time for me, just as my art serves its own purpose. They are both emotional outlets. I have to say that first and foremost. I wasn't trained as an artist, and I never really took myself as an artist per se. I mean, in terms of this is a career and this is how I'm going to earn my living. And so my art, literary and visual, has always been, first and foremost for me, a way of bringing out feelings. And that's why both are very emotional. They help me to deal with my life.
Although Ogibe is a protean character, almost an artist of no nationality, an artist of the world, who moves from one style to the other, from one theme to the other, and is somebody you cannot pin down. It's like a masquerade dancing.
Much of my adulthood in Nigeria I spent within the academic community. I spent very little time outside of Nsukka. The moment I got there, for the 7 years or 8 years that I was around there, I pretty much stayed within the campus. And in moving to London, it was a mere relocation in that sense. But of course, there are cultural differences. Leaving Nigeria was a sort of a sudden break in a sense, because I had begun to develop serious interest in local materials in Nigeria, straw mats and other material like that, baskets and so on, and I was using these in my work. And going to Britain, of course, those materials weren't available. And also I had a feeling that the reception for them would not be the same. Mind you, they had not been enthusiastically received in Nigeria either, but I was determined and I was home, so I could do pretty much what I liked. But being in Britain, I had no access to these materials, and I found myself returning to watercolors, and I didn't want to return to watercolors. So I did them for a while, and then I moved on to acrylics and canvas and board and all of those, and did pretty much a number of things that I liked. I have moved on, because I did the works and canvas and all the things that I did in Britain and Germany and Australia and all that until the end of 1994. After my last solo show, which was in Sydney, I felt less attracted to painting. And prior to that, a couple of years before that, I had already gone into installation work, because my work generally has always been conceptual, whether it was painting or whatever else I did. And I was always fascinated by the installation form. And I had convinced myself, and I think this is not very far from the truth, that installation as an art form is something that was derived from an awareness of the nature of presentation in African art. Of course, it's the same in every other culture, that you have altarpieces and they are arranged the same way. But I think the installation work that people began to do in the 70s and late 60s and into the 80s and the 90s was directly inspired by their knowledge of African art and its arrangements. So I felt that this was something that was not alien to me. This was much closer home. It reminded me of shrines at home. It reminded me of altar pieces. It reminded me of, you know, the arrangement of furniture in the living room. And I took very much to it. For being African, for whatever it's worth, I am, of course, an African artist. But I'm an artist first, and then I'm an African. In a different context, I'm an African first, and then an artist afterwards. One thing, though, is that you can change the identity. I may well cease to be an African tomorrow, depending on what new name comes out, because the name African itself is not even indigenous. My grandfather had no sense of being an African, because he didn't even know the word. He was Igbo, and that's it. And in a sense, perhaps he wasn't even Igbo. Perhaps he was just Modimo, Mbise, whatever local identity.
In spite of the not very positive political climate in most parts of Africa, I think that the artists have managed to create and have continued to create vibrant art, and there is hope that even more will come out of Africa. And I think what the exhibition at the National Museum of African Art has done is to draw attention to the very vital art that is being produced in Africa today.